Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto became the strongest to protect his sister Part 2? Beginning of the academic year. Narumi couldn't mask the excitement as she walked hand in hand with her older brother. She was finally entering the academy. Her mind whirled through all the possibilities. She could make new friends. She could learn to be a kick ninja like her brother was. Maybe she'd even meet a guy who would sweep her off her feet like she read in her little shoujo manga. Naruto was happy for his little sister, but couldn't help but worry. Though a lot of people respected his strength and saw him as his father's successor, they weren't so kind with his sister. A lot of people avoided her and alienated her, though most people didn't outright mistreat her, fearing Naruto's wrath. He had been Anbu for 3 years now, and he had continued to get stronger and develop a reputation during that time, now known and acknowledged in Konoha as one of its elite. Narumi and Naruto soon arrived at the academy, where a new batch of students were all present with their parents. Narumi didn't have her parents with her, but she didn't mind so much, as she had her reliable brother with her. He himself was only 14, but to her he felt an adult, as he carried himself like one, and everyone treated him as one. Well, other than Itachi ni-san, Izumi ne-chan, Shisui ni-san, and Makoto Oba-san. She looked around for any familiar faces, and saw the Uchiha Sasuke and his mother, who she considered family. Many in the clan still disliked her though, as her continued affiliation with the clan only added suspicion and distrust to the intentions of their clan. Their reputation had taken a hit following the Kyuubi incident. The 5 Uchiha who really knew her were very fond of the energetic redhead though. It was hard for anyone to hate the girl when they really got to know her. She was kind, compassionate, caring, and loyal. Positive vibes all around. When the Uchiha family saw the familiar red and yellow mops of hair within the crowd, they smiled and walked over to them. Naruto. Narumi. How are you two? Makoto asked as she greeted them with a hug. I'm doing quite well, Makoto Oba-san. Looks like Narumi here is ready to start her journey as a shinobi. She's been talking about it non-stop ever since her birthday. He replied with a chuckle. The Uchiha woman laughed softly. Our Sasuke-kun has been quite excited to join as well. Something about proving himself or something. Sasuke had a good childhood mostly, but he struggled to prove himself to his father, who was too busy with clan head duties and overseeing the Uchiha military police force. The younger son of the clan head was also constantly compared to the genius of his elder brother, and he was desperate to leave Itachi's shadow. Hey, just wait and see. I'll show you I can be just as strong as Itachi ni-san. Sasuke declared with all the conviction a 7-year-old could muster. Well, any 7-year-old that wasn't Naruto trying to reclaim custody of his sister, that is. Naruto gave Sasuke a smile. He saw the boy as a younger brother, the way Itachi saw Narumi as a younger sister. I'm sure you will, Sasuke-kun, he responded in a genuine way. Maybe if you and Narumi reach the top scores of your CL, I could show you a jutsu or two. Meanwhile, the new students in front of the school stared, and the students in the class poked their heads out of the windows to look at the interaction between the two families. That new student was so handsome. The son of the clan head of the elite Uchiha clan had the looks to match his prestigious background. Many of the girls swooned. And he seemed to be familiar with the rising star and son of the Yondaime. He stole many of their hearts instantly. Really? You'll teach me jutsu? Sasuke looked at Naruto with stars in his eyes. Sasuke looked up to Itachi more than anyone, even more than his own father, who even admitted that Itachi and Shisui were prodigies unseen in the Uchiha clan since maybe Madara. Naruto and Shisui were the only ones who matched up to that level, with Itachi claiming they were stronger than him. Sasuke didn't believe Itachi though. By top scores, do you mean in everything? Or top of the CL in some categories? I think I could manage some. Narumi asked for clarification. I mean top scores like getting Kunoichi of the year. Naruto clarified. It's supposed to be difficult. I want you to set goals that are difficult to attain, so you have something to work towards. Aw man. I hate studying book stuff though. It's so boring. I'll take training over nerdy book work any day of the week. The red-haired girl was annoyed at having to study boring things like history. That nerdy book stuff might be the difference between a successful mission and a failed one, Imouto. Naruto tried to reason. Imagine going on a mission to broker a deal between the daimyo and you offend him because you were ignorant of the history and relationship between his country and a neighboring one. Or maybe you run low on supplies and become forced to forage for food, but don't know what's safe to eat or what's dangerous. Maybe you don't remember the rules of engagement and spark a war between villages. Okay, I get it. Sheesh. Fine, I'll try to work on my book studies too, Ni-chan. Narumi sighed in resignation. Good. Now remember, be friendly and nice, but don't let people push you around. Focus on your studies, and most importantly, don't be a fangirl. Naruto advised Narumi. Makoto also gave similar advice to her son, preparing him for his entrance into academy life, similar to what the other parents were doing. A chunin named Yumino Iruka soon appeared at the entrance of the academy and announced the CL rooms for the new students, and ushered them in, as the parents waved goodbye to their children, wishing them good luck in their new chapter of life. Narumi's CL room. Told you that was the wrong room, Baka. Sasuke told Narumi, rubbing it in her face. Sheesh. I said it was my bad. I got the numbers mixed up in my head. Narumi said defensively. That's why I said I should be the one to lead us. Sasuke reminded his red-headed friend, as they opened the door to their correct CL room. The two friends were the last to enter their CL room, and everyone in the room turned their heads to see their CL mates who came in late. The girls thanked Kami. The Uchiha prince was in their CL. This was perfect. Now they had the opportunity to make him theirs. They were annoyed to see his closeness with the red-headed bitch their parents told them to avoid though. The younger members of the village were unaware of the fact that Narumi was the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, as the Sandaime Hokage deemed the identity of their Jinchuriki an SCL military secret, hoping to avoid losing her to other villages. However, it didn't stop the older members of the village from encouraging their children to stay away from the volatile container, who they feared might release the Kyuubi at any moment, or at least be influenced into harming their children. Hey, why don't you take a seat here? Offers to sit next to them rang out from all over the room. Narumi smiled at all the offers, and walked up with Sasuke to take a seat at one of the seats that were left open. When the two friends reached the spot, Sasuke sat down next to a girl who looked like she won the lottery. Narumi tried to sit down too, when a bag was quickly placed in the seat. Yeah, this spot is taken. A girl told Narumi, with a scowl on her face. Go sit somewhere else, she added, not bothering to mask her rudeness. Narumi's heart sank a bit as she looked around for other seats, and saw the same uninviting look on every face, and sensed their negative emotions towards her. She tried to hold her forced smile, not wanting to show them how much it hurt her, but her lips shook as it began to falter. Luckily, she spotted the waving hand of her friend Hinata in the back who had a bunch of empty seats next to her. Hinata was too shy. Entering a room full of strangers, and being forced to sit so close to them was too much for her. Hinata had found a spot that was far from everyone else, where she could enjoy her space. Hinata. Narumi cried out in relief, and ran over to take a seat next to her. Sasuke saw how these shallow bitches treated his friend and got up from his seat and joined Narumi and Hinata, much to the chagrin of his new fangirls. Didn't see you there, Hyuga. Sasuke explained why they didn't just sit with her in the first place, as he took his seat. Her quiet demeanor really made her presence easy to overlook. It's okay, Sasuke-kun. I'm just glad you and Narumi-chan are in the same CL room as me. Hinata told Sasuke and Narumi. This was indeed a special CL room. Not only was Hinata in this CL room, but a bunch of other clan heirs were in this CL. The Nara, Akamichi, Yamanaka, Aburame, and Hyuga clan heirs were all in this CL. Other children of clan heads such as Sasuke or the son of the Inuzuka clan head were also in the mix. Throw in a couple children of civilian council members, and this CL was already the talk of the school. Alright, everyone settle down. Uruka, the homeroom sensei of the CL said, as he entered the CL. Nobody listened except for Hinata. Uruka's eyebrow began to twitch. I said everyone settle down. He yelled, using his jutsu which enlarged his head and amplified his voice with chakra. That caught everyone's attention, and they finally became quiet. Alright CL, welcome to your first day at the academy. I'm Yumino Uruka, your homeroom sensei, and this is my assistant, Mizuki. He pointed a white-haired chunin who stood next to him. This school has produced some of the finest shinobi of our village over the years, and with hard work, maybe you'll be one of them. Uruka began. We'll be covering the basics and forming your foundation in this first year, before moving on to more advanced topics in later years. I know some of you come from clans and might be ready for more advanced things, but I want to get everyone on the same page, and it's an opportunity for you to brush up on and improve on the basics. I hope you are all aware that a firm foundation is the key for future growth. He ped the floor to his assistant, the chunin named Mizuki. We'll be covering reading and writing, basic math skills, history, chakra basics, and intro to kunai and shuriken jutsu this year. Mizuki gave the floor back to Uruka. Narumi groaned. This is not what she expected. Boring, boring, boring. Uruka gave a quick glare to Narumi for the outburst before continuing. I know many of you are excited to get started, but today is more of an introduction day. We'll shortly cover the syllabus for each course, and have a tour around the academy to get you all familiar with the facilities. Before we start all that, we'll all be introducing ourselves, so that we can get familiar with each other. We need to know what to call each other, right? He looked at the students to make sure they were paying attention before continuing. His eyebrow twitched in annoyance when he caught someone sleeping. It hadn't been 10 minutes since CL, no, their academy lives, began and someone was sleeping already. Unacceptable. He threw the chalk he was holding at a boy who had black hair tied into a spiky ponytail, resembling a pineapple. He woke up when the chalk hit him in the forehead. He sighed and slowly sat up. As I was saying, we'll be starting with introductions. I want names, likes, dislikes, hobbies, and dreams. Why don't we start with you, Mr. I'm gonna sleep on my first day of CL. The pineapple-haired boy sighed. This is so troublesome. Well, my name is Nara Shikamaru. I like to sleep, relax and watch the clouds, and to play shugi. I dislike troublesome things. Hobbies are the same as my likes. My dream is to become an average ninja and live an average life that's not troublesome. Uruka sighed at the unenthusiastic introduction. This was going to be a long day. In the Uchiha compound. I'm so tired. We've been working double shifts when we work at the police station, and they make us take mission after mission when we're not. We barely get any rest, working to protect and maintain the peace of this village, and how do they thank us? With looks of suspicion and distrust. A disgruntled clansman complained to another in a bar in the compound. We do the most work in this damn village. And we barely get thanked for it. I swear these people are so entitled. We're the strongest clan in this village, and contribute the most to it too. We should be praised for our dedication, but instead these people look at us like we're criminals. Can you believe it? We're the police. An equally unhappy Uchiha replied. The disgruntled Uchiha clansman continued, spurred on by his friend's agreement. I can't believe they think we were responsible for the Kyuubi, just because we didn't suffer too many losses and the Senju clan was wiped out. Not our fault they pushed us to the edges of the village, far from where the Kyuubi struck. As for the Senju, man, I'd say they were already on their way out. They hadn't produced any notable shinobi since Tsunade. We got powerhouses like Itachi and Shisui. Not our fault the Senju got their weak ass handed to them. The unhappy Uchiha nodded in agreement. This village is so full of shit. I can't believe that old monkey took the spot back as Hokage. If you ask me, it was time for an Uchiha Hokage. We were one of the founding clans for Kami's sake. Instead, we had 2 Senjus and their lapdog Sarutobi as 3 of our 4 Hokages. Then they made a clan-less orphan a Hokage, instead of one of ours. To be fair though, that clan-less orphan was the strongest shinobi in our village. The disgruntled Uchiha commented. All that strength didn't mean anything when he died to the Kyuubi, now did it? The unhappy Uchiha fired back. No, it did not. A different voice answered back. The unhappy Uchiha didn't notice the difference in voices. Damn right it didn't. Just left us with a whole bunch of problems. Like his wannabe Uchiha brats. Can't believe Fugaku lets that stupid Kyuubi brat enter our compound like that. Isn't he concerned at all that the Kyuubi might break out in our compound? Not particularly. That third voice replied. Huh. The 2 Uchiha clansmen said in unison as they turned around, finally realizing that someone else was standing behind them. Fugaku-sama. Interesting conversation you were having there. The Uchiha clan head commented. We were just discussing current affairs Fugaku-sama. We were just worried about the clan you see. The 2 stammered out, trying to cover their loose talking. I see. Mind sharing your concerns with me? After all, it is the clan head's duty UAGE concerns of the clan, is it not? Fugaku asked in a calm tone, which only served to scare the 2 Uchiha. We were just discussing how the Uchiha clan is not getting the proper respect it deserves. We have some of the strongest shinobi in the village, play the biggest role in its internal security, and we're the only surviving founding clan, but people look at us like we've done something wrong, and they don't treat us with the respect they used to. The disgruntled Uchiha clansman told Fugaku. That Narumi girl isn't helping. Her coming over like that is only making the villagers suspect us more of being behind the Kyuubi incident. The unhappy Uchiha added. I see. Your concerns are understandable. However, it is improper to be speaking like this in public. Fugaku told the 2. Apologies Fugaku-sama. This won't happen again. The 2 quickly responded. Good. Now if you have any problems, or concerns regarding the clan, come speak to me. Fugaku told the 2 clansmen. He lowered his voice to a whisper. I want you both to come to the Naka shrine tonight. We're having a meeting concerning clan matters. He turned around and to leave. Don't worry about the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. She'll serve her purpose. He left with that cryptic message. He had a rare smile on his face as he walked away from the bar, thinking about the fear the 2 Uchiha clansmen showed at his presence. I still got it, he thought to himself smugly. The Naka shrine, underground. Why are we having a clan meeting there? The disgruntled Uchiha asked the unhappy Uchiha. I dunno. Guess we'll find out, he answered. A few hours later, at the academy, Iruka slumped over at his desk. Yup, it was a long day. Just as he expected, he had a strange bunch of students in his CL. Some were too enthusiastic, some were too lazy, some had no personality, while some had too much. Some were too quiet, some too loud. There was no way all these kids were going to get along. He could already see the seeds of drama taking root as well. Why couldn't he have some normal kids for once? Parents were gathered outside, waiting to pick up their kids from their first day of academy. The newest additions to the academy poured out of the CL room when it was 3:30. One by one, parent and child began to go back home, and the busyness of the academy slowly died down until it became quiet. Naruto picked up Narumi from school and was walking her back home. So, Narumi, how was your first day of school? He asked his sister. It was fun. She lied. Her fantasies of school life were shattered the moment she entered her CL room. She didn't want to worry her brother, however. Is that right? Anything interesting happened today? The blonde Anbu asked. Her mind immediately went to the incident that happened a few hours ago. Flashback. Okay, now how about you go? Uruka pointed at Narumi, indicating it was her turn for introductions. Narumi stood up to talk. Hi, I'm Namikaze Uzumaki Narumi. Nice to meet you all. I like ramen, my older brother Naruto, and Hinata and Sasuke, and Makoto Oba-chan. And, oh, Shisui ni-chan and Itachi ni-chan too. I dislike mean people and bullies, and people who judge others before getting to know them. A few of the people in the CL room felt uncomfortable, knowing she was talking about them. How dare she? I'll show her her place. Stay away from my Sasuke, you slut, were some of the thoughts of her bullies. My hobbies include training with my brother, playing with my friends, and learning about seals. My dream is to become Hokage of this village. Oh yeah, and to become part owner of Ichiraku's. She concluded. Uruka smiled at her enthusiasm and childlike innocence. His smile soon turned into a frown when laughter rang out through the CL room. You, Hokage, you wish. Tomato. The whole CL, save for a few, began to burst out in laughter and began mocking her relentlessly, each one trying to outdo the other with a funnier and meaner way to mock her dreams and Narumi herself. Narumi's hopeful enthusiasm shriveled away again. She quietly sank into her seat. Her eyes began to tear up, and her lips began to shake, as she struggled to hold back the floodgate of tears. It wasn't supposed to be like this. The academy was supposed to be the place where she began to make her dreams come true. Hinata was worried, and felt bad for her friend, and Sasuke was glaring daggers at everyone laughing. Uruka tried to calm the CL down, but to no avail. Haruno Sakura, a pink-haired daughter of a civilian councilwoman, joined in, glad to finally not be the butt of someone's jokes, and happy to be part of the crowd for once. Look, the tomato is about to cry. Quick, get your cups ready. Maybe she'll cry tomato juice. The CL roared in laughter. Sakura felt good when her joke was acknowledged by the CL. It felt good to be part of the cool crowd. A pretty blonde girl, and heiress of the Yamanaka clan, who had been sitting next to Sakura, looked at her friend in disgust. Yamanaka Ino had protected and rescued the pink-haired girl from bullies who made fun of her large forehead, and now here she was, doing the same thing to others. Ino hated bullies. She was one of the few students who weren't laughing. Sakura, she hissed quietly, as she poked her ribs with her elbows. What are you doing? What? It's just a joke. Everyone else thought it was funny. Don't be jealous just because you didn't think of it. Sakura brushed off Ino. I can't believe you of all people are doing this. Can't you see how miserable she looks? She's about to cry. Ino felt terrible for Narumi. Who cares? If she can't take a joke, she's probably a loser anyway. Besides, my mom told me she's bad news. Apparently, we should all stay away from her. Sakura told her blonde friend. Ino had heard similar warnings to keep her distance from the redhead in the past. She was told she was dangerous. But Ino was an independent girl, and didn't just obey her parents blindly, especially if she didn't understand why. She hadn't ever really talked to the girl before, but she knew this was wrong. Sakura soaked up the praises and positive responses she got for her joke, and decided to get more. She got up from her seat with her water bottle and went over to Narumi. Hey tomato, tilt your head a little to the side when you cry, will you? I do enjoy some freshly squeezed tomato juice. The CL went crazy, and people were on the floor, howling with laughter. The Inuzuka clan head's son, Kiba, was literally howling. Sakura saw this as a good sign and took it further. She put her open bottle and placed the opening under Narumi's eyes, who was bright red from the emberment. Sadly, with her face round with baby fat, turning red to match her hair color. She did indeed look reminiscent of a tomato. Narumi was about to burst out in tears when she remembered her brother's advice in the morning. Don't let people push you around, Narumi. She reminded herself. She gathered her breath and courage. She suddenly got up and slapped the bottle out of Sakura's hands, and Sakura suddenly stopped laughing. The pinket's eyes widened when she saw a punch coming for her face. Her civilian reflexes were inadequate for her to avoid it, and took it straight to the chin. She crumpled to the ground. The CL was silenced in an instant. Who said I look like a tomato? Narumi screamed in fury, as she turned around to look at her CL mates who had been laughing a few seconds ago. They saw the fire in her eyes, and swore her hair was starting to flail behind her. Most of them wisely shut their mouths. Kiba, while very sensitive to the feelings of animals, and dogs in particular, was not very adept at reading the mood in human interactions. He still couldn't get the laughter out of his system and was still laughing. What you gonna do about it, tomato? Squeeze me into ketchup. Some of the bullies regained their courage when Kiba mocked her, and began to laugh again, though some of them were a little nervous. His partner, a white puppy named Akamaru, who was hiding in his jacket, barked at Kiba to tell him to stop. Akamaru could sense the killing intent and chakra that was subtly emanating from the red-headed girl. He could tell she was dangerous right now. Kiba, however, failed to listen. I'll show you who's a tomato. Narumi screamed in rage, as she jumped down several rows of seats to pummel Kiba. He had thought she wasn't a threat since he was a boy and girls are weaker than boys. He was also from a shinobi clan known for being vicious scrappers, while Sakura came from a civilian family. His misogynistic theory was immediately thrown into doubt when he felt Narumi's fist sink into his cheek. He was beaten savagely, unable to defend himself, despite his best efforts. Iruka didn't stop the fight right away, as he thought Kiba needed to be taught a lesson, and waited a few seconds before going to break up the fight. When the two were separated, Narumi stormed back to her seat, greeted by Sasuke who gave her an approving nod and a grin, while Hinata looked worried, probably worrying about the repercussions of alding the children of two high-profile families. Kiba returned to his seat too, dusty and frazzled from the can of whooping he received from the scary girl in his CL. Seemingly a victim of his self-fulfilling prophecy, he did indeed have something like ketchup leaking from his nose. The CL learned from Kiba's mistake, and decided to be more subtle when mocking Narumi. The Nara boy, who had been one of the students not laughing, had observed the whole thing while pretending to sleep. What a troublesome CL. Flashback end. Nothing in particular. The red-headed girl lied. It was just introductions and stuff, ya know. Standard stuff. Iruka-sensei just showed us around and introduced the syllabuses for the courses. Naruto could feel she was hiding something but decided not to worry about it. There was a storm brewing, one he would be pulled into it in the near future. The next day, Naruto was at the Anbu lounge, hanging out with his team on some downtime. His team, known as Team Omega, was the most renowned and feared Anbu team in the entire elemental continent. Each member was the cream of the crop in the Anbu force, and were captains of their own teams too. When together, however, suicide S-rank missions were completed as easily as any regular B-rank mission. They were led by Hitaki Kakashi, who wasn't the strongest amongst them, but the most experienced, and made the best calls. The rest of the team was comprised of Itachi and Naruto, and finally, a former Root Anbu who had forgotten his name, and went by Tenzo. Each of their own respective teams had flawless records as well, attesting to their individual leadership and skill. Together, Team Omega's teamwork and prowess was legendary. Things looked good for the team, but Naruto had his concerns. Itachi had been acting strange lately. He seemed even more withdrawn than usual. His head was not in the game. Naruto wondered if it had something to do with Izumi, who Itachi had begun to date a few months ago, when she was promoted to Chunin. He waited until Kakashi and Tenzo left, and he and Itachi were alone. "So Itachi, is everything okay? You've been acting kinda strangely recently. Everything alright with you and Izumi?" Naruto asked in concern. "Yeah, everything is fine with Izumi. Though I do miss her. Wish she came back from her long-term mission soon," Itachi replied. Izumi was starting to be noticed for her skills, as expected of an Uchiha, but what set her apart was her high emotional quotient, and ability to understand what other people felt and wanted, which was rare, especially for an Uchiha. Her unique combination of skill and personality led her to be selected more and more for missions that required a more sensitive touch. This meant she was often out of the village for weeks and months at a time. "She'll be back before you know it. I'm sure her team will complete the mission soon. She's quite skilled after all. She's becoming more and more noticed for her skill ever since she became a Chunin," Naruto said to Itachi, hoping his strange behavior as of late was simply because he missed Izumi. He had a feeling he was wrong, and there was more, but he tried to ignore them. "So, how's the fam? Did you talk to Sasuke about his first day of school?" Naruto continued, trying to get a feel for if anything else was troubling the stoic Uchiha. "I did. He said it was boring at first, but something exciting happened." Itachi started. "Really? Narumi didn't mention anything interesting happening. She said it was a boring, standard introduction. Though I don't know what she knows about standard. Not like she's been to any other school introductions before," Naruto mused. Itachi began with a small smirk. "Sasuke mentioned during the CL introductions that..." "Naruto Taiko," one Anbu shouted out, interrupting Itachi mid-speech. "What is it?" Naruto asked the Anbu who showed up with some sort of message. Itachi's smirk deepened, having a feeling he knew what this was all about. "Taiko, you've been summoned to the academy," the Anbu told Naruto. "The academy? Summoned? Who the hell in the academy has the right to summon me?" he asked, slightly irritated. "Why don't you go and find out?" Itachi told his blonde friend. "Fine. Guess I'll get this over with. Tell me what you were gonna tell me about the CL introductions when I get back." Naruto changed out of his Anbu gear, as he told Itachi, who just smirked back. Naruto vanished in a shunshin. At the academy office, a very angry councilwoman and clan head sat in front of a desk at the academy office with their children, who were bandaged up and shifting nervously in their seat. At the other side of the desk, sat the academy director, and Yumino Iruka stood next to him. A nervous red-headed girl was sitting in a separate chair, staring at her feet. She was also seated in front of the desk, on the side of the angry parents, who glared at her hatefully. Naruto appeared in the office with his shunshin. "So why was I summoned?" Naruto asked in an irritated voice. "Please take a seat next to your sister Naruto-san," the director asked. Naruto grunted in compliance and took a seat next to Narumi, who seemed to be even more nervous now that Naruto appeared. She was unable to meet his eyes. Naruto raised his eyebrows in a questioning look. "So?" he asked, hoping to get some answers quickly. "So, I'll tell you what happened. Your damn demon of a sister ulted my precious girl, that's what." Haruno Mebuki screamed at Naruto. "I knew she was trouble. If you ask me, that rabid dog shouldn't be allowed to be in CL with the other students." Sume and Kiba bristled at the negative comparison to dogs. Naruto gave her a glare so cold it could freeze fire as he released an amount of killing intent that was small to him, which he made sure didn't reach Narumi. Everyone else in the room felt it though. Kiba started to shake in his chair, and began to sweat profusely. A small amount of liquid stained Sakura's pants, as she also paled in fear. The director and Iruka were also nervous. Inuzuka Sume was an experienced, veteran shinobi, but she too felt a small bit of fear she hadn't felt in a while. Mebuki, however, had most of the killing intent focused on her, and began to stammer as her blood ran cold. She didn't know why, but she felt like she was in the presence of a predator, who was waiting for her to slip up again, before it would pounce on her and tear her to pieces. "Nobody asked you, Councilwoman Haruno," Naruto replied in threatening tone, which Narumi had never heard from her brother before. "We're in the presence of children, so I suggest you watch your tongue." Mebuki instinctively understood it was no suggestion. It was a warning. Now Haruno Mebuki was a proud woman, and had every right to be, in her opinion. She was one of the youngest civilian council members in Konoha history, by her own merit. She was selected to replace a retiring council member when she was 25, selected for her business acumen, being a rising star in the economic scene of Konoha. She was famous for her ability to appraise the value of anything at just a glance, and had made a lot of money through shrewd business moves. At this moment, however, she forgot she was a successful, high-ranking member of the village in her mid-30s, and it didn't cross her mind that a 14-year-old boy was putting her in her place. She didn't have a good concept of killing intent, so she didn't know why she felt compelled to, but she listened to her instincts and simply closed her mouth and gave him a small nod. Naruto was currently dressed in civilian clothing, and was seemingly unarmed. That did nothing to take away from the overwhelming and dangerous presence and aura he seemed to exude, and it demanded respect, respect that belied what was fitting for his age. He took control of the conversation. "Now, will somebody please tell me what is going on?" In civil words. He emphasized the civil, while glaring at Mebuki, who shrank away from his glare. The director, who finally found his voice, answered him. "Well, you see, Naruto-san, there was a small altercation between the 3 students present, yesterday." Naruto nodded at the director, indicating for him to continue. "From what I've heard, there was a bit of teasing from her peers, and Narumi decided to retaliate in a small scuffle." The director continued, trying to downplay the incident. The Inuzuka clan head thought it was time for her to enter the conversation. "By small scuffle, what he means is that your sister decided to brutally and viciously attack her CL mates. My Kiba here had to get several stitches in his cheek, get his nose set straight, and has a black eye, not to mention all the severe bruising he has all over his body." Kiba squirmed uncomfortably in his seat. Sum was pissed. This is an unacceptable response to a little bit of teasing. Sakura's mom regained her courage, now that she had backup in Sum. "That's right. Absolutely unacceptable. She punched my precious girl in her pretty little face. Look at the swelling in her jaw. She fractured her jaw. My poor baby. What kind of girl resorts to violence over a small joke? So barbaric. It's as if she wants to let the whole world know she grew up without parents. For the record, we can tell, girl. Such uncivilized behavior, as expected from a filthy peasant." Mebuki spat out in disgust. Tears began to fall from Narumi's eyes, when Mebuki brought up the fact that her parents weren't around. Though Naruto was always there for her, doing his best to play the role of both parents, she still felt the absence of her parents, and it was a touchy subject. Sum knew Mebuki up, again, when she saw Naruto's countenance change. Sakura was Mebuki's only child, and when it came to her daughter, she was a little blinded, despite being sharp when it came to business. Her better judgment was clouded by the anger she felt for her daughter's injuries. "I demand full compensation for all her medical fees, as well as any psychological damage she might have suffered from that barbaric girl's alt. I want that girl to be kicked out of this school. She's unfit to be around other children." Sum was going to demand compensation for her son's many injuries as well, but held her tongue for the moment, because she knew it wasn't the right time anymore. Naruto heard the councilwoman's harsh words towards his sister, and saw the huge tears that began to fall from Narumi's violet eyes. She made her cry. She made his precious, adorable sister cry. His hair fell over his eyes as he stood up. Mebuki was feeling smug for getting revenge for her daughter by putting that red-headed demon in her place, when she suddenly felt the air leave her lungs as a hand grabbed her throat. She looked to see the owner of the hand, and saw the eyes of a demon. "What did I say about keeping our words civil?" he whispered dangerously into her ear, as he tightened his grip. Right now, he wanted to cut off her limbs, and remove her eyelids as he used his boil release to melt her pink-haired daughter before her eyes, before dissolving the councilwoman as well. He had to hold himself back so he didn't succumb to his dark desires. "This is my last warning to you. Talk about my sister like that again, and I promise you, this village will have to find a new council member, consequences be damned," he whispered in a tone that made the woman wet herself in fear. He released his squeeze on her throat. "So how much do I owe the both of you?" he asked calmly. His calm demeanor following his fierce anger only scared everyone in the room. Well, I spent 30,000 ryo on her medical expenses." The Haruno mother stammered out. Naruto summoned a scroll that held some of his money and unsealed a large stack of money, amounting to somewhere around 100,000 ryo. He threw it at Mebuki's face with such force that it tipped her chair backwards and threw her onto the floor. "Here's your damn money, woman. Keep the change," he said in a calm, neutral tone, which didn't match his actions at all. "And you?" Sum wasn't a soft civilian woman who wanted to charge for all the psychological damage done to her son. She knew Kiba had a brash mouth and said some dumb shit from time to time, and probably got what he deserved. However, the severity of injuries Kiba got was not acceptable, especially for a schoolyard fight that resulted from teasing. "We'll just take the amount we spent for his stitches and getting his nose set. 20,000 ryo will do," she told Naruto. He counted out 20,000 ryo and handed it to her, before resealing his scroll. "Now that that's settled, I'd like to hear Narumi's side as well," Naruto asked. Sum got her money, and didn't want things to escalate beyond what was necessary. Her son was going to be a shinobi, and should be used to taking a few hits, and she had gotten into a few scraps in school herself in her youth. She decided to just be compliant and went along, as she nodded in agreement. Mebuki picked herself off the floor and wisely kept her mouth shut. Sakura and Kiba were terrified of Naruto, and gulped, fearing what was to come. Iruka and the director had their mouths hanging open, shocked from the events that just took place. It took them a few moments to gather themselves to respond. "Well, maybe it's best if Narumi explains," the director said, not wanting to mess up as he explained, lest he feels Naruto's wrath. Naruto agreed, and turned to Narumi, who shrank back at all the attention she was receiving. Naruto gave her a warm smile, and nodded at her to continue. Encouraged by her brother's presence, she explained what happened. Naruto listened attentively, but quietly, not interrupting her story once. When she finished speaking, he turned to face Iruka. "So, this is what happened?" Naruto asked. Iruka merely nodded. Sum glared at her son, who had conveniently left out a lot of details to make him look more like the victim. Kiba couldn't meet his mom's stare. Mebuki was never bullied in her life. In fact, she bullied others when she was younger. As such, she didn't see what the big problem was. You see, it was just some good-natured joking amongst children, and she decided to overreact. She shouldn't be allowed to. If you finish that sentence, it will be the last sentence you will ever say. Naruto cut her off. Mebuki caught herself mid-speech and shut her mouth. It seems to me like you two raised some bullies, crowd followers, who can't see the difference between right and wrong, and don't care as long as they're part of the cool crowd. Maybe if their parents were more involved in their life, they wouldn't be such scummy people, who are so insecure in themselves that they have to bring others down to make themselves feel better. You're lucky it was just my sister this time. There are people out there who would kill your children for less. Consider it a private lesson in manners. Naruto fired back. Now as this was just a small altercation between children, let's just forgive and forget this whole incident. After all, we've settled our differences and received our compensations, haven't we? Of course, Narumi will continue to attend the academy, and we won't have any complaints about that. Right, so can we wrap this up now? We're all busy people here, aren't we? He forcefully concluded. Sume just wanted to get out of there at this point, and Mebuki didn't feel like getting any more embered than she already was, so they agreed. The children were sent back to CL with Iruka, and the two parents and Anbu member left. The director couldn't have been happier to have his office to himself again. I need a vacation, he thought to himself. Back in the Anbu lounge. Back so soon? Itachi asked his blonde friend who appeared next to him in a shunshin. So you still want to hear my story or? Save it. Thanks for the heads up by the way. Naruto grumbled as he glared at Itachi. Itachi just gave him a mirthful smirk. You're welcome. Naruto changed back into his Anbu gear. Let's go find a bandit extermination mission or something. I need a palate cleanser after dealing with that Haruno bitch. Itachi shrugged and followed Naruto to the mission board. It would be good to get his mind off of his problems for a bit. School life for Narumi improved slightly after that incident. She was scared, thinking Naruto was going to scold her for getting into trouble in her first day, but Naruto actually encouraged her, and told her she handled it well. He told her that she shouldn't try to solve everything with her fists, but it was important to establish yourself as someone not to be trifled with. And she had done just that. She wasn't too thrilled to be going back to that jungle, which seemed out to get her, but when she got back to CL, people didn't publicly try to humiliate her anymore. She took her seat next to Hinata and Sasuke, who gave her a smile and welcomed her back. Pissed. How did things go? Sasuke asked in a whisper. I'll tell you later. She whispered back. At least she had her friends to rely on. When it was time for lunch, the students scattered around the academy to eat. Narumi, Hinata, and Sasuke sat under a tree to eat the bentos made by their parents, and in Narumi's case, by Naruto. So how was it? Was Naruto ni-san mad? Sasuke asked as they ate. I've never seen him that scary before. He was so angry, but luckily he wasn't mad at me. Narumi recalled. You should have seen the way he dealt with Sakura's mom. He was all like, shut up or I'll kill you, and then he threw a bunch of money at her face to shut her up. He really did that? Hinata asked, mortified. She had never seen anyone act like that before. Sasuke also looked to Narumi, non-verbally asking the same thing. Well, not really, but basically. He told her to not be so rude, and she became real quiet after that. He told her that she was a bad mom, and not to be mean to me anymore or he'll get her back. Narumi recounted, leaving out the exact words used. Wow, he really said that to a councilwoman. That very brave of him. Hinata spoke, wishing she had the backbone to stand up for herself too. Naruto ni-san is so cool. I wonder how Itachi ni-san would have handled that. Sasuke thought to himself. So how did Sakura take her mother being yelled at by your brother? The trio turned to look at Sakura, who was a short distance away, telling her friend Ino a similar story as they had their lunch. Ino said something that made Sakura angrier. She turned around to glare at them too, probably when she reached the part of when Naruto manhandled her mom. The trio turned away from Sakura, and back towards themselves. Looks like she didn't like it. Hinata commented, and her two friends laughed. A little bit later, they were done eating, and were getting ready to get up from their meal, when they were approached by Ino. Hey, I'm Ino. I'm in your CL. The three looked at each other, not knowing what the blonde girl wanted. Yeah, we know. What do you want? Narumi asked, not knowing why the blonde girl was talking to them. Wasn't she Sakura's friend? I just wanted to apologize for my friend. Sorry about what happened to you yesterday. Sakura's usually not that mean. I don't know what got into her yesterday. All those mean jokes yesterday. It's not right. Nobody should be bullied like that. Ino said as she stuck out her hand in apology. Narumi smiled when she sensed her sincerity. It's cool. I noticed you weren't really involved in that, so you don't need to apologize. We're good. She shook Ino's hand to accept her apology. Great. Anyway, I was wondering if you wanted to hang out after school today. I want you to meet my friends Shikamaru and Choji. Ino offered. That lazy guy and the big guy? Narumi asked. Ino giggled. Yup. Those two. They're kinda losers, but they're cool when you get to know them. Also, just as a heads up, when we see them, don't call Choji the F word. My brother doesn't let me swear anyway. I'll keep that in mind. Narumi told Ino. The Yamanaka heiress giggled again before clarifying herself. I mean fat. Don't call Choji fat. It's a clan thing, and he's sensitive about his weight. Ooh. Gotcha. Okay, we'll try to be cautious. Narumi answered. The bell rang, signifying the end of lunch, and the trio headed back to the CL with their new friend. Narumi had a huge smile on her face. Maybe she would make some more friends today. That night, at the underground Uchiha shrine. For too long, has this village denied us of the respect we deserve. We bring much prestige to this village. We sacrifice our own time and safety, so that everyone can sleep in their beds in peace. We are the founders of this village. And yet, people see it fit to accuse us of a crime we are innocent of. Fugaku spoke to the gathered clansmen. Grumbles rang out throughout the gathered crowd, acknowledging what was said. There have been 4 Hokages and not one of them have been an Uchiha, despite us being the strongest clan, and producing numerous notable shinobi. Even now, 2 of the strongest shinobi in this village comes from our clan. None of the previous Hokages have acted in our interest, and have only sought to reduce our power. Alienated us. Driven us to edges of the village, while the Senju clan compound was at the center of the village. What else can you expect when the line of Hokages descend from our rival clan? It's time we put one of our own in the seat. Fugaku declared. There were cheers throughout the crowd. About time. I'm tired of those Senju lapdogs. How will we manage to do that? The Sandaime has rejected our previous candidates, and those in the council will never vote an Uchiha in, even if it comes to a vote, as they fear our power. A voice from the crowd asked. My son Itachi has the favor of the Hokage. I will propose him as a candidate at the next council meeting. There's no reason he should refuse. He is powerful, intelligent, and well known and well connected. There is no better candidate. If he is as wise as they say he is, Sarutobi will choose Itachi as his successor. The Uchiha clan head replied. How about the Yondaime's son? A voice from the crowd asked. There's nothing to worry about regarding the Yondaime's son. He has no interest in taking the hat, and if anything, should be the biggest supporter of Itachi. Fugaku said to the crowd, and they seemed to buy into the plan more and more. What if by some chance Itachi is not chosen? Then what? Wait until the next generation's Hokage? A curious Uchiha asked. Fugaku paused for a second. He knew seditious feelings were spreading like wildfire amongst his clan. Change needed to occur, and fast. If this uneasy energy continued to fester undirected, it would explode uncontrollably. To prevent a pressurized pot from exploding, you needed to give it a vent to direct the energy. Unchecked, current affairs could lead to small groups of Uchiha rebelling under different leaders, only to be quelled with their numbers being too small to accomplish anything, whilst furthering the destruction of their clan's reputation, innocent or not. It could split the clan in half, and start a civil war in the clan. Worst yet, a clan-wide rebellion against the village under incompetent leadership could mean the utter destruction of his clan. No, he would control and direct this energy to minimize the damage to his clan. He would either peacefully place Itachi as the next Hokage, or he would lead his clan into a coup that would minimize the bloodshed and destruction. He wanted to show the Uchiha's clan as capable leaders of Konoha, not as its destroyers. To accomplish this, he would need overwhelming force to force the opposition to submit without a fight. Then he could show mercy and be benevolent, and show the Uchiha clan aren't simply power-hungry, they just needed a chance to prove their capacity as leaders, a chance that never seemed to come their way. Fugaku spoke after a brief pause. If he doesn't become Hokage, we'll have to take the hat by force. Murmurs and gasps broke out from the crowd. As strong as we are, how could we take on the whole village? Someone from the crowd asked. Fugaku answered with a sly grin. We'll use the Kyuubi. The crowd went silent. Maybe this could work after all. Two figures in the back looked at each other in concern. Shisui whispered to Itachi, I don't know about you, but this sounds a lot like treason to me. Itachi said nothing, but gave the smallest of nods. It looked like he would soon be forced to choose between his clan and his village if things didn't improve. He hoped it wouldn't come down to that. At the Namikaze Uzumaki household. Did you try the seafood ramen from Kiri? It's so good, Narumi yelled out, savoring the taste of her birthday gift. She seemed to be in a very good mood, and Naruto had a feeling it wasn't just about the ramen. Yup. That's why I got it. It's hard to find these days though, with the civil war going on in Kiri and all. He replied. But that's not why you're in such a good mood, is it? He asked his smiling sister. Well, partly. But also, I made 3 new friends today. I doubled the number of friends I have in a single day. Narumi proudly announced. 3 friends in one day, huh? Impressive. So, who are they? Naruto asked. Well, there's Shikamaru, Choji, and Ino. I met them after school. Well, Ino introduced me to the other 2, after we talked at lunch. Narumi told her brother. Ino, is that the Yamanaka's girl? He asked, seeing a similarity between her name and Inoichi. Perhaps he would visit her later to thank her. Yup, she's pretty cool. She came to apologize because she felt bad that her friend Sakura was bullying me. Narumi told Naruto as she slurped up more noodles. I see. That is quite nice of her. Looks like not everyone is a giant butthole, huh? Naruto said to Narumi, who laughed, revealing half-chewed noodles to Naruto. She needs to work on her table manners if she ever wants to find a boyfriend, Naruto thought. But then again, I don't have a girlfriend either, so I guess that's that. He smiled at her, happy to see things were beginning to turn around for her. He had been worried she'd never make more friends, especially after that unpleasant meeting this morning. Maybe things will start changing for the better. He hoped. He couldn't be more wrong. At the next monthly council meeting. How is our rebuilding process looking this month? Any updates? The Sandaime Hokage asked his council. It had been over 7 years since the Kyuubi attack, and while they had rebuilt most of their village's physical infrastructure, they had yet to recover completely. It wasn't so easy to replace experienced shinobi, as it took years of training, and then even more years of gathering experience. It was a little easier to replace craftsmen and business people, as the replacements now had something like 7 years of experience under their belts. Still, they were still a work in process, and couldn't equate to the skilled workforce who had perished in the attack, as they had decades of experience. Our economic sector is slowly, but steadily recovering still. We've had a 5% increase in productivity from our workforce compared to the same time last year, and we're getting close to reaching 90% of our pre-Kyuubi levels of revenue from business and trade. One civilian council member reported. Still, that's not to say everything is all rosy. We're still short of reaching our goal in trade revenue. The quality of our products still hasn't reached pre-Kyuubi levels, and their image in other villages are even lower than their actual quality. We currently need to secure more trade partners. Mebuki reported. We've received reports from our team in Kusagakur, Hidden GR village. They say talks have been going well, and we might have them as trade partners in a bigger capacity if talks go through. A different civilian counselor added. Good, good. I knew I made the right choice sending that team. Hiruzen said in approval to that bit of news. Looked like things were slowly improving in Konoha, though not as fast as they hoped. Still, some progress was better than none. Only problem is that our revenue is increasing, but our expenditure is still way too high for us to be saving up any significant kind of money. Our coffers are still nearly empty, and we have nothing in terms of emergency funds. Another disaster to the village, and we might not be able to recover. Mebuki told Hiruzen. Perhaps we could ramp up mission frequency again. She suggested to the old Hokage. The Nara clan head spoke up. Our emergency level of mission frequency is unsustainable. Our shinobi began to decrease in efficacy after a few months of non-stop missions, which started to impact the image of the quality and efficiency of our shinobi. It might make more money in the short term, but it does more harm than good in the long run. Which is why we stopped doing that and started giving adequate time to rest after missions again. Shikaku explained to the civilian council, who didn't understand shinobi matters that well. He is correct, Counselor Haruno. Shikaku, please tell us the current state of shinobi affairs. The old Sarutobi asked. Hi Hokage-sama. We've been able to add to the number of Jonin we have, coming close to 87% of pre-Kyuubi numbers, but they don't have as much experience as the shinobi we lost, who were battle-tested veterans of the Third Shinobi War. Honestly, their quality is slightly questionable. We have quite a few promising Chunin however, though the overall number of Chunin are slightly smaller than what we were hoping for due to the number of promotions we were forced to give to meet the required number of Jonin. The Sandaime frowned. Quantity over quality it seemed. Oh well, the quantity could gain more experience and gain the quality with time. How's our image in terms of shinobi quality? The old man asked. Luckily our small drop in shinobi quality hasn't been noticed by the others. We've also produced a few gems to fill in the shoes of the fallen, and if anything, prodigies like Shisui, Itachi, and Naruto are giving the appearance that we are still just as strong. Team Omega is also striking fear into the hearts of many and have given our Anbu a huge boost in reputation. Our Anbu have never been in a better position before. Shikaku reported. The Anbu commander smirked under his mask. Excellent. We are quite fortunate that we have had young talent who have stepped up to go above and beyond our expectations. Hiruzen commented. We also have some reports from Jiraiya-sama. Shikaku told the Sandaime. Let's hear it. Hiruzen gave Shikaku permission to speak. According to Jiraiya-sama, his spy network has heard reports of an uneasy atmosphere and strange, unconfirmed activity from a Megakure, Hidden Rain Village. We haven't been able to confirm anything, as no one has been able to enter or leave AIM without Hanzo knowing. This is troubling. I'll look for a team to go confirm these reports. The Sandaime stated. There are also reports from our spies in Iwagakure, Hidden Stone Village, and Kumogakure, Hidden Cloud Village. They're beginning to suspect that we are not in as strong of a position as we are projecting to the world. Shikaku told the council. He paused for a moment to say what was next on the report. This was troublesome news after all. Apparently they're also wondering if you are as strong of a leader as you once were. That is absurd. What makes them think that all of a sudden? Akimichi Shuza blurted out in question. It's not all of a sudden. Our spies suspect our handling of the Hyuga incident may have planted seeds of doubt in their minds. The Raikage took a gamble to probe our position, and he may have gotten lucky with his guess. Hiruzen sighed. The Raikage had been furious his ambassador came back in what was essentially a glorified shoebox. He accused Konoha of breaching the terms of their peace treaty. When Konoha explained it was in retaliation to the ambassador's attempted kidnapping of the Hyuga heiress, Kumo refused to believe them, and threatened them with war. Konoha was in no position for a war with the most militaristic village who also had the largest shinobi forces. It had only been 3 years since the Kyuubi destroyed a huge portion of the village, and they simply could not afford a fight. They appeased Kumo with a large sum of money, which they had to pay in installments, and a new treaty that was favorable to Kumo. Danzo seethed. He had argued that they should call Kumo's bluff. As damaged as they were, they could still put up a fight. His root Anbu could be used in asymmetrical warfare, hitting Kumo in unexpected and crucial spots, but still leaving Kumo unaware of the culprits. Kumo wouldn't risk throwing themselves into a war to gain little, over a wrong they knew they committed. Hiruzen didn't want to risk it, however, and disregarded Danzo's advice. Danzo knew he had been too soft. The bandaged elder spoke up. While we aren't in as weak of a position as they suspect or hope, they aren't completely wrong either. You aren't as strong as you once were, Hiruzen. It's time you start to consider choosing a successor. The strength Danzo was referring to wasn't in terms of fighting prowess, and more in strength to make hard decisions. Hiruzen had successfully led them through the Third Shinobi War, but had come out a changed man. He hated war, and wanted to avoid war at all costs. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. Leave it to Danzo to talk about switching Hokages. His bandaged teammate had wanted to be Hokage since the Second Shinobi War, and didn't even try to hide it. Well, I'm not as young as I once was, Danzo, but I hear you, I am still strong enough to protect this village from internal and external threats. He warned Danzo subtly. Perhaps Hokage-sama, but maybe it's best you choose a successor and groom him for the position while you're still strong, so that we may have a peaceful and seamless transition. Shibi, the Aburame clan head, proposed. Fugaku saw this as the opening he had been waiting for. Might I suggest my son Itachi for the position? As we all know, he is one of our rising stars. One of our best and brightest. He is wise beyond his years. Perhaps Hokage-sama could groom him for 6 years, until he reaches 20. Aren't you worried he'll be too young? Hiruzen asked Fugaku. He liked the boy, but he was currently 14, and better off in the field than in the office. He was one of the few that upheld the reputation of Konoha after all. He is only 14 in age, Hokage-sama. Mentally I'd say he's already more thoughtful and wiser than most people twice his age. Also, his young age could be a benefit for us. With you as an advisor, especially when he is younger, he could get the experience he needs for the job. Taking the mantle at a young age and guided by one of our finest Hokages, he could lead for a long time, giving the village the stability it has lacked recently. Fugaku reasoned. Hiruzen thought about it. It wasn't completely preposterous. It wasn't like his own students were up for the role like he had wished. Jiraiya refused the role, saying he needed freedom to maintain his spy network. Tsunade hated the Hokage position so much that she had left the village, claiming the position itself had stolen what was most precious from her. As for Orochimaru, well, let's just say he was never going to be considered again. Opposition to Fugaku's suggestion sprang up from his political rival. You can't consider this nonsense, Hokage-sama. You would have a 14-year-old boy as your first choice for a successor. Granted, the boy is a powerful shinobi, but he doesn't have the political acumen necessary to lead a village. It takes more than knowing how to kill people to lead a village. It would be much more prudent to have an older, more experienced shinobi for the role. One of us should be considered, if anything. Clan heads have experience managing the affairs of a clan, and are well versed in politics as well. Many in the council nodded at that. He did raise some good points. Besides, the Uchiha's scheme is as clear as day. He means to place his son as a puppet Hokage, whilst he rules from behind the scenes. We can't trust the Uchiha yet. We have no evidence they were not behind the attack in the first place. The Hyuga mentioned smugly. You dare bring that up again? How many times must we prove our loyalty? Why is our loyalty in question when we've done nothing but prove ourselves over and over? Our clan has done much more for this village than the Hyuga clan ever will. Fugaku yelled as he slammed his fist on the table. What? How dare you? Hiyashi also stood up. Arguments and insults began to fly across the council room, and other clans began to get involved as well. It was pure chaos. Hiruzen silenced them with a shout. Silence. He released a pulse of killing intent to get their attention, and the angry clan heads began to simmer down as they sat down quietly. After much consideration, I have deemed Itachi unfit to be a candidate due to his age and lack of experience. We will consider him again in the future if I don't find a better option. I will continue as Hokage for now. I hope you all can behave yourselves better next meeting. Council dismissed. Hiruzen concluded the meeting angrily, disappointed that his council were not above acting like children. The Uchiha clan head left the room angrily. He had proposed a peaceful solution, and all he got in return were insults and mockery. He had no faith in the council. He now knew for certain, from this experience with Itachi, and many previous experiences with Uchiha candidates, that Konoha would never allow an Uchiha to be Hokage. If they didn't want to play along, he would take matters into his own hands. At the academy, it had been over a month since Narumi had entered the academy now, and things had improved since the disaster in the first day. She was still hated and avoided by most of her CL mates, but at least they didn't openly insult her anymore. She still heard them whispering behind her back, and she could sense the negative emotions they had towards her. Still, things were much better and more bearable now that she had more friends. She had grown closer to Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji over the past month, and last week Aburame Shino joined their little group. Due to her kind and compassionate nature, and being an outcast herself, Narumi didn't like seeing others being alone. She had noticed the other children avoiding the Aburame boy, grossed out by the bugs that crawled all over him. She didn't mind as much, and began to talk to him, and eventually convinced him to hang out with them. I hate stupid math CL. All this stupid homework. I don't even understand what the heck they're saying half the time. Why is Hideko buying 47 watermelons anyway? And why is Tomoki splitting his tonkatsu between 3 people? Who shares one tonkatsu with 3 people? Just order one per person. Gosh, they're stingier than Oni-chan. It makes no sense. Narumi groaned as she looked down at her book, which seemed to mock her. The Akamichi clan heir nodded in agreement as he shoved a handful of chips into his mouth. Sharing tonkatsu? The question would have made more sense if it asked why Tomoki ordered 4 more for himself. Perhaps they are on a diet. Why? I do not know, but I have observed many people, including our own CL mates, consume less calories for some reason. The Aburame boy offered. It's to maintain our figure, Shino. Some of us actually care about how we look. Ino said defensively as she glanced at Sasuke to gauge his response. She and Sakura had fallen for Sasuke, like many others, and had been dieting in their attempt to look their best to get his attention. Sasuke didn't seem to care. She had been hanging out with him in their group for a while now, and she still couldn't crack his code. Ino wasn't the type of girl to give up easily though. Being a Yamanaka, she couldn't help but be drawn to mind games. People's psychologies were something begging to be analyzed. She'd find what made Sasuke tick, one day or another. Speaking of Sakura, the two were slowly drifting apart. Initially it was because Ino wanted to be Narumi's friend, but Sakura didn't, especially after she saw her mother get humiliated by Narumi's brother. Sakura had made new friends in the other bullies now anyway, and didn't need Ino as much. Their rivalry on getting Sasuke's attention just drove the wedge in deeper. Hinata giggled at her friend's interaction. Perhaps you could ask the teachers for extra help after school. She proposed. Many students got some after-school tutoring to get help in subjects they were struggling in, whether it was history or shuriken throwing. Fit. As if those stupid butt faces would help me anyway. Narumi rolled her eyes. The redhead's skills in taijutsu and with weapons were increasing steadily. She seemed to grasp the concepts very quickly with a little practice. However, she struggled with more academic studies, and Naruto was often away on missions, unable to help Narumi in her book studies very often. She had tried her hand at getting help from her instructors, but many of them didn't like her either. They were unable to refuse their help outright, as rumors of Naruto's fierce retaliation to the Haruno woman had spread amongst the teachers, and they feared his wrath. However, they did the bare minimum, and didn't try to hide their displeasure. Narumi could sense the negative emotions, and found it hard to concentrate. She eventually lost the drive to ask for help, as she found it pointless. They made it clear they didn't want to help her, even if they didn't say it. She stopped asking for help, and started only coming to school to see her friends, as the teachers didn't care how she did in school, and largely ignored her. She stopped caring about her academic side, and focused on her physical training. It was much more fun training with her Ni-chan, than reading some dumb book anyway. However, it wasn't just Narumi who had problems with their progress. Sasuke had also been frustrated as of late. While his performance in school was stellar, he had been unsatisfied with himself when it came to physical capabilities. He was one of the top performers in his CL in that regard as well, but he had higher standards for himself. He wanted to step out of Itachi's shadow and show himself as a prodigy as well. Naruto and Itachi were both busy people. However, if Naruto had even the smallest sliver of time, he would spend it with Narumi, and help her with her training. Itachi, on the other hand, had other obligations to his clan, and it was getting harder and harder for Sasuke to get training time with him. His mother offered to help, but he wanted help from Itachi, maybe even Shisui, but both of them seemed busier these days, and harder to find. Even when he did find them, they had grim looks on their faces, and were not focused on him, even when they did train him. He was starting to get envious of Narumi. At least Naruto always had time for her. At a discreet, isolated part of the village, Itachi and Shisui had been having problems of their own. Their clan was on the verge of a coup, and they seemed to be part of a very, very small minority that was against it. They had been trying to calm the situation down, and work towards cooperation with the village, but it had been largely unsuccessful. Last night, Fugaku-sama asked me to use my Mangekyo Sharingan on Narumi when the time comes. Shisui told his younger cousin with a resentful look. Shisui was one of the very, very select group of people in the clan who had awakened their Mangekyo Sharingan, awakening it a few years prior, when he was forced to kill his own teammate during a mission that went south. He regretted telling the clan head of his development. Does he really intend to release the Kyuubi again? Itachi asked out loud, though he was really asking himself. He knew if the Kyuubi was released, or even if its chakra was used, there was no way that Narumi would come out unscathed. She was like a little sister to him, and he didn't want her to be hurt. Why was his father being like this? I'm not sure, but we can't take the chance. It will be a catastrophe for the village. We still haven't recovered from the Kyuubi's attack 7 years ago. Shisui responded. We need to tell Hokage-sama about this. And betray the clan. This could be the nail in the coffin for the Uchiha clan. Itachi asked his cousin. A nail and coffin that our clan is making for itself. Shisui answered. He sighed seeing Itachi's hopeless look. Hokage-sama is a reasonable and peaceful man. I'm sure he can help us come up with a peaceful solution. Itachi thought about it. And if he can't, maybe Hokage-sama will just punish the ringleaders and let the rest of the clan off. We are a crucial part of both its internal security and shinobi forces after all. If not, Itachi asked. Shisui paused. Then the clan will have to pay the price for treason. We're at the crossroads, Itachi. Whether you want to make the choice between clan and village, the choice will be forced upon you, if you wait long enough. Maybe if you choose earlier, we can reduce the damage. Shisui seemed to have made his choice already, though Itachi was not ready to make that decision yet. He was sworn as a shinobi of Konoha, to protect her from all dangers, internal and external. But how could he betray his clan? His own flesh and blood? He was unsure of where his loyalty lied. He was still thinking, when his Anbu tattoo started tingling, signaling that he was being summoned. I have to go, Itachi told Shisui, as he vanished a shunshin of crows. Man, the whole crow shunshin thing was my thing. Shisui complained out loud to no one in particular, glaring at the empty spot where Itachi stood a second ago. Totally stole it. Damn Uchiha and stealing people's jutsu. He complained ironically. At the Hokage's office, Itachi appeared in the Hokage's office to find Naruto and the Hokage waiting for him. You summoned Hokage-sama, the young Uchiha Anbu captain asked. I did. I have a mission for you and Naruto-kun. The Sandaime began. We've received reports of strange activity from AIM. There are reports of clashes between at least two different groups. Omegaker's shared border with us means whatever is going on there could spill over. We need to know what's going on. We have been unable to gather any information from AIM for the last 15 years due to Hanzo's iron fist ruling over Omegaker, and his paranoia, but that lack of information makes the situation potentially more dangerous. We know close to nothing about what has been going on there. Will we be leading our respective teams? The Yondaime's son asked. The aged Hokage shook his head. Due to this being an undercover mission, we can't afford to send out large numbers, and risk detection. Hence, we are sending just you, two of our finest, especially when it comes to infiltration. Understood. We will not fail you, Hokage-sama. Itachi answered. Naruto nodded in agreement. The Sandaime nodded back. I know. Anything else, Hokage-sama? Naruto asked. If you two are detected, your priority is to escape. Do not engage in combat unless it's a matter of life and death. We can't risk another war. Hiruzen told the two, who nodded and vanished from the office to leave for their IGN meant immediately. The old man pulled out his pipe and began to smoke as he thought about the blonde boy who left his office a minute ago. He always felt guilty when he looked at the boy. He felt as if he should have done more for him following his parents' demise, but he was just so busy. It wasn't easy maintaining order after such a disaster, with thousands of deaths and destroyed properties, and it wasn't easy overseeing its reconstruction either. He was swamped with responsibilities, and his second term in office had aged him considerably, due to the stress. Still, he felt as if he had failed to protect the boy and his sister from the wolves in the council, and he definitely failed to protect their inheritance. He had been the biggest voice opposing the use of their inheritance for the rebuilding of the village, but he had been outvoted by the council, who argued that the village was in a precarious position and needed the fund immediately. They argued two children didn't need that much money right now and the needs of the village outweighed their comfort. He tried to salvage the situation somewhat, by making the council promise to refill the Namikaze Uzumaki bank account when the village was in a better position. They agreed, but that day seemed to be far off. He had also looked after the two by keeping political enemies off of Naruto's back. Naruto was powerful, one of the top 10 strongest in the village, but he was terrible with politics, rarely considering the consequences of his actions. His latest incident with the Haruno woman had made her an enemy, and she wasn't the first. He barely had any friends, both personally and politically. He had also vetoed any bill or proposition that regarded weaponizing Narumi. He was very clear about how he felt, and the last person who proposed using Narumi in such a way received lashes and was imprisoned, just like Hiruzen promised to. The number of such propositions dropped to 0 after that. Still, he felt terrible he couldn't protect Naruto's innocence and childhood. The boy was forced to grow up at the age of 7, and essentially had to become an adult overnight. At least mentally and emotionally. He had a heavy burden on his shoulder, and Hiruzen wished he could have done more to help him as he puffed away on his pipe. Days later, somewhere on the border of Amegakure and Hai no Kuni, two Anbu, one with a fox mask, and the other with a weasel mask, stealthily moved across the border, into the country where Amegakure was based. The two slowly moved closer and closer to AIM itself, and they had even stopped talking to each other, communicating with Anbu hand signals only to remain undiscovered. They moved in the rain for hours, until Fox spotted somewhere they could camp for the night undetected, getting them out of this damn rain, and signed this information to Weasel, who simply nodded. They sat down to eat their nutrition bars, tasteless things that did nothing but give them the calories and nutrients they needed. They didn't start a fire, not wanting to risk being spotted, or leave a trail. The two were eating in silence when they heard a commotion a short distance away. The two looked at each other, and nodded. They used their own camouflage jutsu to become unseen, Fox using his Misagakure no Jutsu, hiding in camouflage technique, while Weasel cast a powerful genjutsu over himself to make people overlook his presence. They slowly creeped closer behind some rocks they could hide behind, while still having a view at what was going on. AIM shinobi were fighting a group of people who were poorly dressed. They had no identifying Hitai-ite, but seemed to be shinobi, based on the fact that they were using Suiten Jutsu to fight back against the AIM shinobi. However, they were too few in number, and had old people, children, and other civilians with them that they had to protect, and were promptly cut down by Hanzo's men. Fox hummed the refugees, or who he thought were refugees based on their attire and composition, would now be captured, only to be shocked when the AIM nin slaughtered all of them, including the children. They left their bodies there for the scavengers, only taking their valuables. Fox fumed, thinking that could have easily been someone like his sister, while Weasel saw their destruction and drew parallels to what could happen to his own family. The two waited until the AIM nin left before they went and examined the bodies that were callously left behind. They seemed to all be related to each other. A clan perhaps. What were they doing in AIM? Didn't they know better than to cross its borders? The two gathered all the information they needed before deciding to continue their info gathering. Was this the clashes they were told to look into? Refugees being slaughtered? They suspected either there was some other group that was clashing with Hanzo's men, and this was a coincidental, random, and unfortunate encounter, or there were more refugees coming this way, only to be slaughtered, driven here by something. Whatever it was, they needed to find out what it was. They moved out, moving closer to Amegakure, until they came across a small village that was under AIM jurisdiction. They infiltrated the village to gather more information. They agreed to split up to search, and meet up again at a promised location within 10 hours. Fox spent some time looking around, eavesdropping when he could, and searching behind locked doors, which he easily picked. He eventually stumbled upon a house which seemed to be a depot of confiscated goods, and also a drop point for Hanzo's men, who left things here to be picked up and taken to AIM. He found a few jutsu scroll, which he sealed away immediately. He would look through them when he was in a safer place. The rest of the things there didn't really catch his interest, and he left them in their place. He finally reached the last room, which had a multitude of locks on it to prevent people from entering. However, to someone like Fox, they might as well have not been there. He used his uniquely high fire release affinity to create a small jet of blue flames to cut through all the locks and bolts. He was shocked at the loot he found here. It was full of higher-ranked jutsu scrolls which he sealed promptly, as well as some money and gems, which he greedily sealed away with a lustful smile and slightly crazy eyes. But the creme de la creme of the loot was probably worth more than all the money and gems he sealed away. He had no idea why these things were here, but he knew he was going to make good use of them, especially the one his eyes were locked on. He had always wanted one of his own, but now he had one right before him. A summoning scroll. Elsewhere in the village, Weasel had been eavesdropping some of Hanzo's shinobi who had been talking about a certain rebel group that they had been fighting. He was surprised someone dared to go against Hanzo the Salamander. He was known as the strongest shinobi of his time, and had even defeated 3 of the strongest shinobi that Konoha had at the time, simultaneously. He was the one who had given them their legendary title, which they carried with pride, even though they received it after they lost a 3-on-1 fight against the man. The legendary Sannin of Konoha could not stack up against the man, and now he was hearing there was a man who dared to go against Hanzo. What kind of madness was this? He thought he heard enough and was planning to slip away, when he felt a hand on his shoulder. He was surprised someone was able to see through his genjutsu, and turned around to face his opponent. He dropped his genjutsu when he saw a group of 12 AIM Jonin and Chunin, looking for a fight. Like what you heard? Hope you did, since it's the last thing you're gonna hear, the man who appeared to be their leader said. Weasel activated his Sharingan under his mask and got ready to spill some blood. The man who had his hand on Weasel's shoulder had a direct view of the young Anbu captain, but didn't even see him move when suddenly the hand he had on the Anbu no longer belonged to him. He hadn't even been able to process the fact that he had one less hand, when he found himself looking at his body from a low angle he had never seen before. That was the last thing he saw before his life left his eyes. Weasel kicked the severed head into the crowd, making them shift their bodies to avoid the bloody head. He used that moment to rapidly flash through some hand seals to set up his Kaden, Hosenka no Jutsu Fire Release, Phoenix Sage Flower Jutsu, which sent several fireballs into the crowd. He used the distraction to Kawarimi away. The AIM Nin believed their numerical superiority would have scared the Anbu member, when suddenly their leader's head was kicked towards them, and weren't ready for the large balls of fire that seemed to target individuals rather than coming in randomly. Some of the ones slower to react died quickly, when the shuriken hidden inside the flames pierced their skulls, and the surrounding flames cooked their flesh to a well-done state. The faster ones were able to either jump away, or use Suiden Jutsu of their own to try to block the fireballs, but the Suiden users who remained stationary were also caught unaware of the shuriken hidden inside and were injured by the projectiles. Within 2 seconds, they went from having the element of surprise and numerical superiority, to being the ones caught surprised, and having their numbers cut down to 8, with 2 injured. A scared Chunin ran from the fight, claiming he would bring back up. Shit. Weasel thought. He would have to finish this up quick and get out of here. The AIM Nin had gotten over their initial surprise and started searching for the Anbu captain, who had switched places with the severed head after he kicked it, and hid his presence. From behind the group, he used his Anbu Chikudo to cut down the 2 injured stragglers, and now had 5 more to go. The 5 remaining AIM Nin were the 5 of the strongest Jonin from the group, and the fight from there on was a little bit more difficult for Weasel, especially when they came at him together with a combination of swords and Suiden Jutsu. They looked like they had been working together for a while, with their excellent teamwork. He used his Sharingan to track their movement to weave through their attacks, getting close enough to enter within the Kenjutsu user's guard. Their long-reach weapons came back to bite them, as in ultra-close range, their swords became unwieldy, while Weasel used his kunai to quickly deliver precise stabs to major organs and veins. In a short couple of minutes, he had killed the last of his attackers, when the scared Chunin returned with 30 Omegaker Nin, all of the remaining shinobi stationed in the village. Shit, was the one word that went through Weasel's mind. A few minutes later, Weasel hid behind a wall of a house that was now ruined from the fight between him and the AIM shinobi, as he tried to strategize. He had killed 13 of them, but he was handicapped by not trying to draw too much attention to his location by using big, flashy jutsu. Luckily, Weasel excelled in subtle and quiet killing methods as well, and had successfully taken care of almost half of them. He peered over his shoulder and saw 25 dead bodies strewn all over, and blood everywhere. Suddenly he saw a dead Uchiha in their place, the blood staining the ground of the Uchiha compound red, the night sky red, with a full moon hanging over the sky, staring down at him, as if it were a giant eye that seemed to tell him it had witnessed everything. The vision shocked him. It was a nightmare for someone who loved his clan. The vision faded away as quickly as it came, but it had paralyzed him for a second, which the AIM ninja capitalized to attack him from all angles. He activated his Sharingan and pulled out his Chikudo, but he knew there was no way he was getting out of this unscathed. Stupid. He never should have spaced out like that. That was very unlike him. He had never done anything like that before. And now, he would pay the price for such a rookie mistake. He braced to receive multiple stabs, but he suddenly felt chakra latch onto him, and he was replaced in a Kawarimi. He looked at where he was standing just a second ago, and saw Fox take all the stabs that were intended for him. Then Fox disappeared in a puff of smoke. A Kage Bunshin, thanked Kami. The AIM shinobi now committed the same mistake that they tried to capitalize on, and froze when a different target suddenly appeared and vanished with a puff of smoke. They had no time to react when a giant blue ball of fire hit them and incinerated them. They died together instantly. What the hell was that, Weasel? Get your head in the game. Fox yelled out to Weasel. Whatever was bothering him was now putting them in danger. I've never seen you freeze up like that. What was that all about? He asked Weasel. Sorry. I just thought I saw something that wasn't there. It won't happen again. Weasel told Fox. It better not. Fox told Weasel. We got what we came for. Now let's get out of this dump. Weasel agreed, and the two took off. They quickly left in silence, heading towards the border with Kusa, to throw off their trail. Somewhere on Kusa territory, Weasel broke the silence after a few hours. Thanks, Fox. Things could have ended a lot worse than it did. I didn't expect you to show up there. Fox replied back to Weasel. Ah, whatever, man. Of course, I was gonna rescue your. We're practically family after all. I'll always have your back. Weasel stared at Fox for a brief moment in silence, before he nodded. Yes, Fox was indeed his family. In fact, he was more family than some in the clan who shared his flesh and blood, if that made any sense. His mind began to work overtime, as two sides of him fought each other, as he struggled to make a decision. He had two families, and he was being forced to choose one over the other. How could he make such a decision? At the gates of Konoha, the team gazed upon the giant gates of Konoha, which stretched high into the air, and couldn't be happier to see the first sight of home. They were greeted by two Chunin, named Kamizuki Izumo and Hagane Katetsu, who were aptly nicknamed the Eternal Gate Guards, because they had, at some point, started to only take gate guard duty. Other Chunin began to stop taking the gate guard missions, as they were already always taken by the pair, and it became unofficially official, that the gates were their duty. Let's get this troublesome process over with. The leader of the returning team told his team. He greeted the guards with a lazy wave. Team Suzaku returning from a mission in Kusagakur, hidden GR village. Jonin Nara Suzaku, Chunin Inazuka Hana, Chunin Aburame Muda, Chunin Uchiha Izumi all accounted for. Geez, Suzaku Taiko, would it kill you to show a little energy in this last leg of our mission? Izumi asked her Jonin leader for the mission to Kusa. I'll need to save what's left for the report to the Hokage, Izumi. Give me a break. The lazy Jonin told the girl as he hung his head in response to her nagging. She'd been like that all mission. He eventually even turned over most of the negotiating duties over to the Uchiha Chunin, only adding his advice and opinions when absolutely necessary. He would say he just wanted to give some negotiating experience to the promising Chunin, but Izumi knew he was just being a lazy bastard, just like the rest of his clan. The team had just spent the last 3 months in Kusa, negotiating better trade deals, and strengthening their relationship. The team was handpicked by the Hokage for their skills, Suzaku for his intelligence and sharp mind, Muta for his logical and rational decision-making, Izumi for her high EQ and ability to empathize and connect with people, and finally Hana was chosen for her ability to support her team with her medical and combat skills, while still being one of the more level-headed members of the Inuzuka clan. The team had achieved more than what they had aimed for, and the team was excited to report their success to the Hokage. Well, at least the Chunin were. The Jonin captain found it troublesome to report all of the details of their agreements. It would take hours to explain everything. Hours he could have spent lazily watching the clan's deer herd. They walked towards the Hokage tower, taking in the sight of their village. They had missed it after all. For 3 months they were away in Kusa, a minor village, and even though it was one of the bigger ones, it still couldn't compare in scale or grandeur to their village, even if it was still recovering. Alright, you guys can go off and do your own thing for now. I'll give the oral report to the Hokage. You guys can turn in your written reports tomorrow. Now scram. Suzaku told his team, and his team thanked their lazy captain, before quickly speeding off to do whatever thing they said they would do when they first got back to the village, on their journey back from Kusa. With Izumi, she had asked around to see where her boyfriend was, only to find out he had been ignored a mission and wasn't in town. It had been 3 months without seeing him, and now she had to wait even longer to see him. She pouted, sticking out her lower lips, as she thought about what she should do next. She looked at the time and realized the academy would be over for the day soon, and decided to go pick up her favorite brats in the village. She headed over to the academy, and realized it would still be a few minutes before school was out for the day, so she sat on the swing in front of the school, the one she used to play on back when she was still an academy student, and began to write her mission report, as she used her legs to gently rock the swing back and forth. When the bell rang to signify the end of class, the students began pouring out of the building, like water from a faucet. The kids split up into small groups, as friends went off to hang out after school, or were picked up by their parents. Narumi came out with her group of 6 friends, and was excited to be out of that hellhole. Another useless day. They always ignore my questions. I don't know why I even bother going to school. Narumi groaned as she walked out with her friends. It's quite rude of them. They seem to be especially mean to you today, Narumi-chan. The shy Hyuga heiress commented. The way they treat her is quite illogical. I cannot. Shino was interrupted by a wolf whistle followed by a shout. Who is that? She's so hot. An excited Inuzuka Kiba yelled, as he pointed to a slender figure who sat on the academy swings. Naturally, all the heads turned to see where he was pointing, and saw the same figure. Narumi narrowed her eyes to get a better look, but when she recognized who it was, her eyes widened, and her mouth split into a mild smile. Izumi Oni-chan, she yelled, as she practically exploded towards Izumi, leaving only a cloud of dust where she once was standing. Sasuke was also excited to see her, but tried to hide it, so he didn't seem uncool. He and the rest of his friends walked over to Izumi as well, who by now was being glomped nearly to death by Narumi, who was rubbing her cheeks into the Uchiha girl's neck. Izumi could only smile at Narumi's reaction to seeing her. Looks like someone missed me. Oh, did I ever? You've been gone for months. Months. We haven't been able to have our girls-only outings for months. Stingy Oni-chan was also making me eat veggies and stuff like that instead of taking me out to eat yummy stuff. Narumi yelled out at a rapid pace that would make a certain Jinchuriki in Kumo jealous, as she maintained her hug on Izumi. Hello Izumi Oni-san. Sasuke calmly greeted Izumi. Oh, now that you're in the academy, you think you're too cool to give your Oni-chan a hug? Get your butt over here. Izumi teased. Sasuke blushed lightly in emberment and gave her small hug. Hello Izumi-san. It has been quite some time. Hinata politely bowed. Well, if it isn't my favorite Hyuga. How have you been? Izumi asked, and the three academy students chatted away with the older Uchiha girl. Ino, Shikamaru, Choji, and Shino stood awkwardly by the side, until Izumi turned her attention to them. So, who are they? Are these your new friends? Narumi smacked herself in the forehead. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't tell you. These are my new friends. This is Ino, the lazy one is Shikamaru, the friend next to him is Choji, and the quiet one is Shino. They're my awesome friends. She excitedly introduced her friends to the Chunin girl. Wow, looks like someone's popular. She told Narumi as she elbowed her shoulder in good nature. The academy students greeted Izumi, and they chatted for a while, before Ko came to pick up Hinata, and the Ino-Shika Cho trio were also picked up. Izumi offered to walk Narumi and Sasuke home, to which Narumi gladly agreed, while Sasuke also agreed, but with a little less excitement, at least openly. Glad to see you two make more friends. I knew people would come to see how awesome you two are. Narumi beamed at Izumi's comment. So how have things been? How's school? Training? Everything okay at home? The two academy students seemed to deflate at that. Why? What's wrong? Izumi asked the two with concern. The two saw Izumi as an older sister, and felt comfortable enough to her anything, even things that they didn't tell anyone else. So, when Izumi asked them if everything was alright, they opened up the floodgates of complaints and frustrations that had been building up. Narumi started. Well, it was nice to make a few new friends at the academy, but it hasn't been all good. A lot of the kids hate me, and I can sense it. I don't even know what I ever did to them, but they hate me and bully me. They always leave me out of everything, and ignore me if they're not actively making fun of me. On the first day of CL, they all called me a stinkin' tomato. How am I a tomato? Narumi raged, throwing her fists into the air, but despite all her anger, she looked more cute than scary to Izumi. Izumi giggled at Narumi's reaction to her own story. I don't know, but you sure are the cutest tomato I've seen. Narumi blushed a little at the strange compliment, before she continued. That's not all. I'm doing good in my shuriken and taijutsu training, but those stinkin' instructors always nitpick when it comes to me, and mark me down for any and every mistake. They don't do that for everyone. Just me. And that's the subject that I'm good at. The boring clees like math or intro to chakra are even worse. They suck at explaining, and when I ask them questions, they ignore me. My grades are terrible, and I'm scared to show Naruto Oni-chan my report card. He's gonna be so disappointed. I hate going to school, and I hate everyone there except my friends. I only go to school so I can see them, and so Naruto Ni-chan doesn't get mad at me. Izumi frowned. Those bastards at the academy picking on her little sister like that. They couldn't see the sweet, cheerful girl that she was, and only saw the Kyuubi. Stupid. So stupid. I'm sure Naruto-kun won't be mad at you, you know he cares about you a lot, and just wants you to do well. I'm sure he won't let those people at the academy treat you like that if he knew. Izumi tried to encourage the young redhead. Narumi nodded her head a little, and stopped talking to give a turn to Sasuke, and Izumi looked at Sasuke to let him know it was his turn to talk. Sasuke was next to vent. Well, I've got nothing major like Narumi, and I'm doing fine in school. Izumi nodded at him, prompting him to continue. But, Sasuke continued, but I'm not satisfied with my training. Everyone is too busy to train me. Tu-san is too busy with clan affairs, Itachi and Shisui Ni-san are always on missions, or are up to something between them. They always have a serious look on their face these days and are always whispering to each other. It's hard to even find them around the compound these days, and even when they finally make time to train me, they're distracted and unfocused with me. Izumi could tell how frustrated her favorite kids were, and she was frustrated for them. She decided to help. You know what? Your Nei-chan just got back from a mission, so I'll have a few weeks off until my next mission. I'll swing by and give Narumi some help on her school work, and we can all train together after school. How does that sound? The two kids had stars in their eyes. Really? You'd do that for us? They asked almost in unison. Of course. You two are my favorite Imouto and Otuto in this village after all. Izumi declared as she put her arms around their necks. The three of them smiled at each other. Izumi invited Narumi to sleep over at her house, since Naruto was away on a mission, and Narumi readily accepted. A sleepover with her Oni-chan was always fun. The three of them entered the Uchiha compound some time later, and Izumi noticed the strange atmosphere. There seemed to be a lot of tension in the air. The weird stares on Narumi were hard to ignore as well. Sasuke, is there something up with the clan? The Uchiha girl asked, sensing something wasn't quite right. I don't know Ne-san, but there is a weird mood to the clan these days. I'm wondering if Itachi and Shisui Ne-san know anything about it. Izumi narrowed her lips. She knew something was wrong. She'd get to the bottom of this. A couple weeks later, at the Hokage's office. Are you certain? The Sandame asked the two Anbu operatives he had sent on a recon mission to Omegakure. Hi Hokage-sama. Weasel replied. This is troubling news, a group that's strong enough to be giving Hanzo the Salamander a tough time. We'll need to keep an eye out for more news regarding this rebel group. This Akatsuki. So, you're telling me the group might have some connections to Kiri? Hiruzen asked. Well, that's a speculation based on some rumors going around in AIM. We haven't been able to find any evidence that connected Akatsuki to Kiri. The refugees we found there are more of an indication of the desperate situation with the civil war in Kiri. Fox replied. I see. Excellent work you two. We've gotten more news regarding AIM from this one mission than we have in the past decade. Any intel on the Kiri civil war is a welcome one as well. I'll add the pay for an S-rank mission into your accounts. You've earned it. Now go get some rest. Dismissed. The old Hokage told his two best Anbu, who nodded and promptly vanished. With Fox and Weasel, the two headed to Anbu HQ to change out of their mission gear. Always glad to be back home after a long mission, Fox said as he took off his mask, revealing a blonde 14-year-old with blue eyes. Agreed. I've heard Izumi is back from her mission as well. Weasel said as he changed out of his mission gear, revealing Itachi. Hey, so even the stoic Itachi shows feelings for his girlfriend, huh? Naruto teased, as he finished up changing. Let's go look for my sister and your girlfriend. The two agreed and headed off. They were walking down the streets when they heard a familiar laugh with some familiar voices from a nearby dango shop. When the two entered, they saw Izumi, Narumi, and a chunin named Mitarashi Anko eating dango with a flustered Sasuke. No need to blush so hard, Gaki. It was just a suggestion. Anko said innocently, as she suggestively licked the sauce off of her dango. Sasuke huffed as Izumi and Narumi laughed. Now, I hope you're not having too much fun with Sasuke-kun, Anko-san. Naruto spoke as he sat down and swiped a stick of dango from Anko's plate. Blondie-kun, you're welcome to join us, but you need to order a round of dango for all of us. You do owe me, you know. Anko said in a mock seductive voice as she slithered her arm around Naruto's shoulder. Hey, I just took one stick. I can't afford to buy all of you a whole new plate each. He said defensively, trying to protect his hard-earned cash. You just got paid for an S-rank mission, Naruto. I'm sure you can afford a few orders of dango. Itachi said softly, as he took a seat next to Izumi, who couldn't help but break into a wide smile and a blush at the sight of her boyfriend she had been missing for months. Smile turned into a smirk. Ooh, an S-rank EH. In that case you'll have plenty of Ryo for ramen. Narumi interrupted with a shout. Dango. Anko finished while entering into a glaring contest with Narumi, their eyes fighting a fierce battle to defend the honor of their favorite foods. Meanwhile, Naruto gave Itachi a dirty glare. How dare he try to part him from his money? He needed to think of a way to get out of this situation, quickly. Why don't we give the happy couple some time alone? It has been quite some time since they've gone on a date, no? I'll take little Narumi here for some training. Gotta check her progress and all, you all understand right? Naruto tried to say smoothly, as he grabbed Narumi by the arm and tried to slink away to the door. Narumi maintained her gaze in her staring contest with Anko as she was dragged off. As Izumi and Itachi got up together for some alone time, Sasuke realized he had been unaccounted for, and he would be left alone with the crazy snake lady, Anko. No, he would not suffer by himself. Guess that leaves you and me to go do some training of our own Yaki. Anko turned her attention to Sasuke with a stare that promised a world of pain, whether physically or mentally. Sasuke had to think quickly. I'll be training with Naruto Ni-san. He tried to join up with the retreating siblings. I'll come along too then. Anko began to stand up. But who's gonna finish the 10 orders of dango and the finest sake this place has to offer? Sasuke quickly replied. Huh, what dango? What sake? The snake summoner asked. Waitress, I'd like 10 ordered dangos and the finest sake you have here for the lovely lady here. Put it on the tab of Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. He quickly ordered before running past Naruto and Narumi and exiting first. Wait, what? Naruto was left speechless at the turn of events. In that case, how can I refuse? Thanks for the drink and dango, Blondie-kun. She blew him a kiss. Hey, wait, I never agreed to all this. He yelled, but it was futile, as the waitress quickly brought everything out, and had already opened the bottle. The manager in the back smiled as Ryo's signs could practically be seen in place of his eyes. The waitress would get a nice tip for her quick action. Naruto was unable to fight back, as he was dragged off by Narumi, who was now excited to show off the new skills Izumi had taught her. Naruto cried as he was dragged away. It hadn't even been an hour since he had received his precious, and now his precious was being spent against his will again. With Izumi and Itachi, the Uchiha couple walked along the main street, looking for a place to grab dinner, as they caught up with each other. The pair received smiles from many of the vendors, being seen as cute couple. Izumi blushed as she snuck her arm around Itachi's, who saw what she was doing and failed at hiding the smallest of smiles when Izumi leaned her head on his shoulder. All the turmoil in his mind was silenced when he was with her. They decided to eat something small, as they had already had some dango earlier. The pair found a small eatery, which served snacks and small meals, which had a wide entrance and window facing the streets, offering a good view of the village's lively streets. Itachi ordered some onigiri, and Izumi ordered some anpan rolls and some tea to go with it. They ate their meal with some light-hearted conversation, often talking about Sasuke and Narumi, which Izumi noticed made the smallest of changes in Itachi's expression, which disappeared as quickly as they came. She brushed it off, and the two had a good time talking to each other and enjoying each other's company for hours, until it began to become dark. Most of the guests had gone home by now, and they were alone as the owner had gone to the back to clean up. It was then Izumi decided to bring up a question that was burning at the back of her mind for weeks now. Itachi-kun, do you know anything about the strange atmosphere in the clan these days? She asked her boyfriend. Itachi's face turned serious in an instant. How about we start heading home, Izumi-chan? Izumi could see the micro-expressions on Itachi's face that told her that what he wanted to tell her was not to be heard by others. Sure, it is starting to get dark after all. Let's just pay and head out. The two paid the owner, and left to go home. The two took a detour, and walked into a somewhat isolated path through the woods, where nobody went usually. Itachi led Izumi to a small bench, where they sat down. So, I see you notice that something is up with the clan. Izumi nodded, and Itachi continued. He explained the current situation, and the things that were being plotted. Izumi's face began to pale more and more as Itachi explained. Finally, Itachi finished explaining, and Izumi couldn't find words to speak. Finally, after a few seconds of processing, she managed to speak. What will we do now? Our clan is going to use Narumi to basically overthrow the village leadership. Things can't go well for either side. Itachi nodded. To be honest, I don't know. I love our village, and I don't want to hurt Narumi, but how can I betray our clan? I haven't been able to decide, and I haven't been able to tell anyone about what's going on in my mind. Izumi listened quietly to Itachi before asking, "Did you tell Naruto?" Itachi, he can help you, he's basically your brother. Please, talk to him. How can I discuss using his sister to our clan's benefit? He'd sooner kill the whole clan himself than to see her come to harm. He must not know about this. Nobody can. Izumi, promise me you won't tell him, at least until I come a decision. Izumi's mind was already made up. She wasn't about to let anything happen to Narumi. She believed in Itachi and knew he would eventually make the right choice and protect Narumi as well. She decided not to push him and drive him into making rash decisions, so she decided to go along. Sure, Itachi-kun, I promise I won't tell. But think about this. Our clan is your family, but Naruto and Narumi are also your family. Itachi grabbed her hand as he gave her an erring smile. I know. I'll find a way to protect both families. Izumi smiled back at him. She believed in him. She would do her best to help him find an answer. At the Naka shrine, underground, the figures of a small group of people were huddled over a table covered in documents and photos, speaking in low whispers. They had been discussing who needed to be neutralized to prevent their opposition from mounting an organized resistance. Who needed to be paid off, and who needed to disappear. After a lengthy discussion, they had come to an agreement on what needed to be done. So, when will we make our first move? The voice of one of the Uchiha elders asked. There will be no first move. We will prepare everything, and when we see an opening, make all our moves at once. There will only be one shot, and if it doesn't work, it will mean a war against the entire village. Fugaku replied. We'll have to make sure our one shot goes off as smoothly as possible. We'll need a distraction to occupy their attention while we get our pieces into position. As he spoke, his eyes fell onto a picture of their resident redheaded Jinchuriki. At the Hokage office, late at night. Hokage-sama, we must make our move quickly. The clan is getting restless. If we don't pacify them now, it may be too late. Shisui told the old Hokage in a private meeting. The Sandaime puffed on his pipe. And what do you suggest we do to pacify them? We must organize a private meeting with the clan elders, and concede to at least some of their demands. They are feeling more and more alienated from the village, and feel as if the village doesn't care about their needs and concerns. Shisui suggested to Hiruzen. If the other clans find out about this, they may feel like we are favoring the Uchiha clan, and might also begin to have rebellious thoughts. And it might not guarantee the Uchiha's loyalty either. Hiruzen reasoned. Shisui sighed. He had one last trump card. Sandaime-sama, I do have one last alternate option. Hiruzen leaned forward to listen. My Sharingan has a unique ability. It's called the Koto Amatsukami. I can only use it once every 10 years, but it allows me to plant ideas and suggestions in the mind using a genjutsu so powerful that it makes the target think it was their own idea, and they have no way of knowing the genjutsu was used on them. Hiruzen leaned back. This was a powerful, and very dangerous technique. In the wrong hands, it could prove catastrophic. He thanked Kami it was in the hands, or in the eyes rather, of a loyal, and reliable shinobi by the name of Shisui. That's quite the ability, Shisui-kun. I'll keep that in mind. I'll try to think of something. In the meanwhile, Please continue to keep tabs on the conspiracy, and let me know. Hiruzen told the loyal Uchiha Jonin. Shisui nodded, and burst into a flock of crows that flew out the window. Hiruzen got up from his seat and went to the window. He looked at the moon as he puffed on his pipe, deep in thought. Meanwhile, an eavesdropping elder of the village couldn't believe his ears. Such a powerful ability. He couldn't trust such an ability in the eyes of an Uchiha. He would have to take the power and give it to someone he could trust to use the power for the good of the village. He would have to give it to the only person he trusted. He had to give it to himself. At Ichiraku's, a few days later. Nothing beats a nice hot bowl of ramen after some training. A young red-headed girl shouted out as she took her seat at her favorite ramen stand. You say that about ramen for everything. Sasuke commented. The other 5 friends laughed at his comment, as they agreed. Do we really have to have ramen? It's gonna be so bad for my figure. Ino complained. Hey, you guys all said I got to pick this time. Narumi yelled in defense. Ugh, we should have known you were gonna pick ramen, that was dumb of us. Ino sighed. Choji had no issues with ramen, and was excited to dig into the ramen that Narumi had been building up for weeks now. The 7, as they now called themselves, had taken up to training together, at Narumi and Sasuke's behest. Though they called it training, very often it was more of a hangout. Ino complained too much to train, besides, she couldn't watch her Sasuke train if she was busy training herself. Choji was too out of breath to run usually, and just ate his chips next to Shikamaru, who was always napping or lazing around instead of training. It was mostly Narumi, Sasuke, Hinata, and Shino who trained. They had been taking turns to choose where they ate after training, and Narumi naturally brought them to Ichiraku's where she always spent all of her weekly allowance. I don't see how you have so much energy anyway. Ino mentioned. You guys train so hard, it's hard for us to keep up. Perhaps you are lacking energy. Why? Because you do not consume enough calories. Shino suggested. Hinata giggled when Ino huffed as she tried to think of something smart to say back. She failed, and she angrily turned her head to the menu, looking for the ramen with the lowest calories and fat content. Well, it's because me and Sasuke, and Hinata-chan too sometimes, have been training together for a long time, Narumi explained. We've had awesome trainers too. Like Naruto Ni-chan and Itachi Ni-chan, and Izumi Ne-chan recently. Oh yeah, don't forget Shisui Ni-chan too. At the last name everyone perked up. While Naruto and Itachi were well known amongst the shinobi, their Anbu status meant a lot of their achievements were relatively secret, and unknown to the public. They merely had reputations of being strong due to their meteoric rise through the ranks. Shisui on the other hand, was a regular jonin, and was a legendary one at that, and was known by his moniker, Shunshin no Shisui, or Shisui the Teleporter. Everybody knew him and his skill. He was a legend. No way. You know Shunshin no Shisui? Ino asked in awe. He trains you guys. Choji forgot about food for a second as he asked. At her friend's response, Narumi felt proud of her relationship with Shisui. Yup. He's awesome. I actually like training with him the best. He's funny, and he always brings snacks. Oh, so that's why you like me. The 7 heard a voice say from behind them, and Narumi and Sasuke felt a hand on their shoulders. They turned around to see the man they had just been talking about. Shisui the Teleporter. Shisui Ni-chan. Narumi happily greeted him, before she realized he might have everything she said. Hee, how much did you hear? Shisui gave her a teasing smile. Let's just say, starting from the point where you said ramen is the best after training. Narumi's face grew red in emberment. Damn her and her loud voice. Shisui just laughed seeing Narumi's reaction. He decided he had enough fun teasing her. You know what? I'm in a good mood knowing how awesome you kids think I am. Why don't I pay for all of you today? He offered. The glint in Narumi and Choji's eyes made him realize he made a mistake, but it was too late to take it back. Shit. Me and my big mouth. Shisui thought to himself. The seven were accompanied by Shisui as they ate their ramen, and chatted amongst each other, with many of Narumi and Sasuke's friends asking him questions about previous missions and the like. So, you guys are in your first year, huh? I guess you'll be joining the shinobi forces in around 4 years then. Shisui asked Narumi and Sasuke, who nodded. If you guys do well, I'm thinking about becoming your Jonin sensei. I do enjoy teaching you too after all. It'll be fun. I get to pee down my skills, and I get to take you on some fun D-rank missions while I'm at it. Narumi and Sasuke's eyes widened, and they begin to sparkle. Sasuke especially, was happy to hear someone take so much interest in him. He was only in his first year, and someone as strong as Shisui, who was said to be even stronger than Itachi, was offering to teach him when he graduated. He couldn't wait for 4 years to pee. No way, Shisui ni-chan. That's awesome. I'll be your best student. I promise. Narumi also couldn't wait to be his student. He was very good-natured, and a good combination of firm, but relaxed. He was always so fun to train with. Meanwhile, the other 5 students with Narumi and Sasuke were also flabbergasted. To them this was akin to getting training by one of the Sannin. Their mouths hung wide open at the scene. A little later, the 8 satisfied customers of Ichiraku's got up after their meal. Thanks, Shisui ni-san. Narumi and her friends all thanked Shisui for the meal and headed off. Shisui went to the counter to pay, and was astounded by the bill. No wonder Naruto always seemed so down after taking Narumi to eat ramen. He thought as tears began to roll down his face. A few weeks later, Itachi had just walked Izumi home after a date, and was coming back home when a crow landed in front of him. He thought nothing of it, and continued to walk home, but the crow began to follow after him, until it landed on his shoulder. This appears to be one of Shisui's crows. Itachi thought to himself. The crow flew off his shoulder once it had Itachi's attention, and landed a short distance away, and gestured to a certain direction by repeatedly looking at Itachi, and back at the direction. Itachi understood that the crow was trying to lead him somewhere, so he began to follow. Now that Itachi was following it, the crow began to fly, starting slowly, and then picking up speed. Itachi matched the crow's speed, and followed the flying crow. It led him through some woods, and finally led him to a cliff at the end of the woods, which stood above the Naka River. Standing near the edge of the cliff, Itachi saw a figure who was leaning against a tree, panting, and trying to catch their breath. He went closer to find that it was Shisui. He was heavily injured and he was bleeding from his right eye. Shisui, what happened to you? Itachi yelled, quite uncharacteristically, as he ran towards Shisui to help him. Shisui looked up at Itachi, and Itachi realized his right eye was missing. Shisui replied with one word. Danzo. Flashback. Shisui was coming back home after informing the Hokage of how far things were progressing with the conspiracy, when he was stopped by Danzo. Follow me. There's something you need to hear. The bandaged elder of Konoha told Shisui. Shisui was always wary of the elder, but Danzo was heavily bandaged and walked with a cane, while Shisui was probably the strongest Jonin in Konoha. He decided to ignore the bad feeling he had in his stomach, and followed Danzo. A short walk into the woods with Danzo, and they arrived at a clearing. Danzo turned around to speak. I'm aware of the conspiracy your clan is plotting. I also know you're against it, and will do anything to stop them from going through with their coup. Am I wrong? Shisui wasn't surprised Danzo knew. He was a high-ranking elder of the village, and an old teammate of the third. He always had an uncanny ability to gather intel. At least he knew that Shisui wasn't against Konoha. You're not wrong, Shisui replied, though I'm not sure how you've heard. So, what is it you want to tell me? What would you do if I told you there was a way to prevent the coup from happening? A way to protect the village from the danger it faces? Danzo asked Shisui. Shisui was beginning to feel like Danzo had some ulterior motive, and was feeling uneasy. He began to tense himself to be ready for anything. Depends. What do you need me to do? What are you willing to sacrifice for the sake of the village? For the sake of peace? Danzo asked in an ominous way. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Danzo-sama. Shisui answered. Danzo gave a small nod and Shisui noticed several root anbu appear between the trees, forming a circle around them. Shisui understood whatever it is that Danzo wanted, he was going to take it by force. Danzo, whatever it is you're planning, I want no part of. Just leave me alone, and I'll pretend this never happened. Shisui warned Danzo. I'm afraid I can't do that. Danzo replied, as he nodded to his agents. They drew their tipless tantos, and began to close in on Shisui. Shisui drew his own blade, and formed one-handed seals to perform the Hosenka no Jutsu, Phoenix Sage Flower technique. Several balls of intense fire spewed out from his mouth, and attacked the root anbu, though all but the slowest of them were able to dodge the fireballs. Shisui didn't mind, it was merely an opening for him to use his trademark variation of the Shunshin body flicker technique. Several after images of Shisui appeared all over the clearing, as he effortlessly used the Shunshin in rapid succession to appear as if he were everywhere at once. The root anbu were unable to use their numbers to surround him, as Shisui appeared suddenly behind each root anbu and cut them down before vanishing just as quickly as he appeared. The root anbu were left slashing at his after image, and were unable to deal with someone of Shisui's caliber. They were hacked and burnt by Shisui, while they themselves were unable to land a hit on him, but they had accomplished the purpose Danzo had brought them for. To distract him and give him an opening. He drew his own blade and rushed in at blinding speed, which threw off Shisui, as he had thought him to be a feeble old man. Danzo created a blade of wind from his own blade, and slashed at Shisui, who easily dodged it and struck back at Danzo with his sword coated in his fire chakra, overwhelming Danzo's wind-natured chakra-imbued sword. They had a brief exchange in sword strikes, and while Shisui was surprised at the old man's skill and speed, he was still the superior ninja and began to overcome him. The exchange ended with Shisui's burning sword going through Danzo's heart, and Shisui quickly followed through with a Goryuka no Jutsu, Great Dragon Flame technique, to incinerate Danzo and the remaining root anbu. He saw Danzo's burnt and charred remains fall to the ground, and turned around to leave. He sensed a warp in reality, and turned around to see an unscathed Danzo rushing to him with blinding speed, leaving Shisui to be unable to react in time. Danzo ripped Shisui's right eye right out of its socket, and Shisui screamed in pain, as Danzo delivered several sword strikes into him. He held the socket of his right eye and looked up to see Danzo hold his right eye, and several more root anbu began pouring into the clearing. Danzo's bandages around his head fell, revealing a blinded Sharingan in one of its eye sockets. Shisui understood what had happened. Izanagi. How had Danzo even known about the forbidden technique? And how had he acquired a Sharingan? That thought was answered when he remembered his own eye was in Danzo's hand. That sick bastard would do anything for power. Shisui began to cough, and found blood on his hands when he wiped his mouth. His vision began to blur, and he felt slightly more sluggish than before. He knew what had happened. Poison. Looks like the effects of my poisoned blade are starting to show now. Danzo told Shisui. Damn this old man. Shisui knew his chances of coming out of this were slim unless he won quickly. He would not allow him to get his left eye. The root anbu began to rush him, with their tantos raised to strike him from all angles. They swung their swords at Shisui, only for them to harmlessly bounce off of an ethereal green ribcage that formed around Shisui to protect him. Shisui's left eye revealed a four-pronged pinwheel pattern. His Mangekyo Sharingan. Susanoo. Shisui yelled, as the rest of the figure began to form around the ribcage, eventually resulting in a towering green figure, holding a drill-like lance. He easily began to dispatch the attacking root anbu, and Danzo realized he had nothing in his arsenal that could match up against such a power. He decided to walk away with his gains, and quickly left while Shisui was distracted with his Anbu. He'd let the poison do the work. Shisui wrapped up killing all the root Anbu, and realized Danzo had gotten away. By then he was already weakened by the poison and the use of his Susanoo in his weakened state. He knew he didn't have long to live. He summoned a crow and sent it to find Itachi. Flashback end. Shisui explained what had happened to Itachi calmly, despite being near death. Itachi, I won't be able to protect the village or our clan any longer. Shisui told Itachi. No, if we get you to the hospital in time, we can still save you. Just shut up and let me carry you. Itachi shouted out in response. No, it's too late. Listen, Itachi, I need you to do something for me. Shisui said calmly before ripping out his left eye. You're the only one I can entrust with this. Please use it to protect the village and the Uchiha name. Tears began to stream wildly down Itachi's eyes. No, Shisui, I can't. I'm not strong enough. Please, don't go. Itachi begged Shisui. Shisui stepped forward and put his eye in Itachi's hand, and leaned in to whisper into Itachi's ears. Itachi's eyes widened in fear. A few moments later, Shisui's body fell from the cliff, and into the river. Itachi knelt by the edge of the cliff with a bloody sword in his hand, looking down at the Naka River where Shisui's body fell. The stream of tears turned into a stream of blood as Itachi wept bitterly. He opened his eyes to reveal a three-pronged pinwheel pattern on his red eyes. He had awakened his Mangekyo Sharingan.